Start us off, Carter.
Hello there! It's me, the Moople, here to teach you about spelling and sharing and all kinds of fun stuff on the Moople Show! Yeah! Woohoo! Yeah! Hey, get the fuck out! God damn it! Kevin, why did you let that guy in here?
Listen, man, he told me I would learn how to spell, and I'm so,
God,
I gotta learn one of these
I
days.
know, I know, I know. I know we made that a meme with you, but
Yeah,
Mooples,
meme.
those guys are fucking rogue Norwegian agents. You know, they break into places promising like fun educational episodes, and then they steal your personal information to give back to the Norwegian government, and then they eat all your Cheez-Its, and they take your photo albums and sell them to weird mouth breathers who are on Reddit too much. God damn it.
I
What do we do?
I wasn't too worried about the Norwegian thing at first. That didn't seem like. I mean, it was not great, but um,
Look, I don't want to have a team meeting about this again. Okay, what do
I'm
we do
sorry.
here? Oh, right, wrestling. Hey everybody, Carter and Kevin explain wrestling. Carter here,
I'm Kevin.
and we are talking about all things wrestling as WrestleMania
Yep,
slowly creeps over the horizon as the temperatures rise. So does the tension.
that was wonderful.
Thank you. But yes, what has happened in the world of wrestling these last couple days?
All right, so it's been a little bit of a minute since we last talked about what's happening. Hasn't happened since the Elimination Chamber, and
Mhm.
quite a bit has happened. So let's start with the kind of not the not hottest things around. I'm not saying they're cold. I'm just saying they're the not hottest things.
Mhm.
So matches are being made more and more clear of what's happening. As that's been happening since the last couple of weeks. It seems
Mhm.
that Randy Orton is causing some problems with Logan Paul and vice versa. So that's probably going to be leaning into something. Nothing confirmed yet. AJ Styles and LA Knight, same kind of situation, very
Mhm.
tense, but nothing's been confirmed yet. Now let's get to the confirmed matches.
Gotcha.
We have confirmation that the tag team titles are going to be held in a 6-team ladder match. So
Oh,
six
jeez.
different teams all fighting for the tag team titles that are going to be held over the ring, where you can only get to them via ladders. Now we know obviously the Judgment Day, consisting of Damian Priest and Finn Balor, are going to be participating because they're the current title holders. But
Right.
the next couple of weeks is going to have all the qualifying matches, which is kind of fun.
How many are there?
So I don't know exactly the amount of matches there are going to be for qualifiers, but there's going to be 5 other tag teams competing in the match.
Hmm.
So, along with them,
Okay.
local favorites are consisting of people like the Creed brothers, Alpha Academy, Street Profits. So it's like all teams that seem that people are like, oh, it's probably going to be these guys. Seem to have their like solid chances of having their names thrown into the ring, and it's they always typically do like one really big match like this, but it's exciting because it's like that's going to provide a lot of opportunities for it's going to be like a spot fest, so you're going to see a lot of people like doing big crazy moves and like everyone clearly organizing themselves to go in a specific spot in order to like get ready to catch the next person, but it's still going to provide good entertainment. And,
Right.
and people are talking about one because it's the unified tag team champions, which happened under the Usos' reign a little bit ago. So it's both the Raw tag team champions and SmackDown ones. So people are talking about it's like, oh, they're going to hang them separately, and 2 people are going to grab them at the same exact time to separate the titles, which could be interesting.
Right.
Because
So there are two different belts you can get in tag team.
so technically, yes, they're currently unified, not uniformed, because of the Usos and the whole like bloodline at its peak reign. But people are talking about this would make sense of a way for them to ununiform them. Unify. God damn it. I got the word uniform stuck in my head and I can't unthink it. And the tag team division is great, and it's like a lot of legitimate talent, and it doesn't seem like there are just tag teams of people. Like there's still tag teams that are just people thrown together, and it's just like, yeah, kind of like a make this work deal. But it's a lot less of that and more like, oh, these guys are like legitimate tag teams. So that's kind of exciting because tag team division's on the boom. So hopefully they make something go from that. And then
Right.
another huge title match announced is Sami Zayn, everyone's favorite, is going to face Gunther for the Intercontinental title after winning a 6-man gauntlet match on Raw, where it starts off with two people, and it's a little Royal Rumble-esque where somebody comes in after a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of like a time limit, it's after one person gets out. So person A goes in, person A and B are there, person A gets pinned, person C comes out, and so forth
Right.
until
It's
there's
a
two
more
more.
organized version.
Yeah. And the
Okay,
final
that makes
two
sense.
were Chad Gable and Sami Zayn, and they put on a clinic. And the only reason I'm slightly not happy that Sami Zayn won is because I really wanted it to be Chad Gable. Like, but they were still number 1 and 2 when I was fantasy booking the match. They were still number 1 and 2. So it's not like neither of them deserved it, and I'm not like devastated that this match is going to happen now over something else. But it's just like, dang it, I was like this close to getting Chad Gable in that match, and that would have been awesome because he's put on a couple like real show-stopping numbers with Gunther over the last year. So, given them the stage of WrestleMania, they could have probably made something huge happen.
Right. I guess that's a question I have. Like, how often is there like, I guess with like how big the roster is, how many people get left out of major events? Are there a lot of
Uh,
people where it's like, ah, man, why didn't they get a headlining act here? Why didn't they get a?
a decent bit. A lot of the time they at least make an effort. There was a couple of years in times where it's just like they just didn't have like a U.S. title match at WrestleMania or an Intercontinental title match, and it's just like, why are you withholding a title match? Like, what is going
Mhm.
on? But it it feels like now that they're trying to make the most amount of people be on the show as possible, like with the tag team match and stuff like that. But they're trying to make the entire thing make sense, which is nice. Because, like, as of all the matches that are announced for this year so far, not a single one of them is just like, oh, why are they doing that? It's like Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins have been going after, like, been chirping at each other for months, and that's gonna end at like WrestleMania.
Mhm.
The Cody's gonna possibly finish his story. That's been
I have
happening
been
for a
seeing a
year.
lot of, yeah, I have seen a lot of Insta and YouTube shorts that have referenced finish the story.
Yeah, no, it's becoming a very big meme, and I, it, it's it's one of those like setups, and with what we'll talk about next of what's going on with Cody, basically, it's
Mhm.
one of those setups that it's just like they. It feels like they are preparing for a new revitalization of the WWE, where late 80s and 90s, a lot of these guys were household names and everybody loved, like, everybody who's anybody would at least have an idea of what was happening. And now with the meme factor of a lot of things and how big some of the stars are, it is it feels like it's getting to that caliber again. And there's been times in the past with like, well, under Vince, like Vince's later career, where it's like okay, they can make a lot of things happen with this, and then they just do bad writing or they make it flop, and it just doesn't feel good.
Right. It does. It like based on what you're describing, it sounds like the stories are much better written now, and
Yes.
it's not like you're not wholly dependent on just like the charisma of the two people running at each other.
Yes, it's skill plus charisma plus it's not just big muscly dudes anymore because that's not the pro wrestling scene anymore. It is
Right.
like this like the scrawny kid who just like was it last WrestleMania? Yeah, Chad Gable, who's like 100 pounds soaking wet, like he's a real small dude, but he was an Olympic level wrestler. He suplexed Braun Strowman, who's like 3 times his weight. Like it was nothing. Like
Right.
that's kind of what they're getting at more now, where it's like they're developing talent and they're maintaining things and they're not giving like humiliating gimmicks like they have in the past. It's like some gimmicks aren't as strong as others, but it's not as crazy, and they're doing more things outside of the ring too,
Mm.
which is kind of nice. It's like it it's like a weird like kayfabe adjacent. So kayfabe is like the whole storyline telling of things and stuff, and it's like when they show things of their like personal lives and talk about like do things on social media. It's like a certain level of it is for the camera and the audience, but you also know it's fake. Like when Dirty Dom got arrested for breaking into his parents' house on Christmas,
Right.
and it wasn't on a show. It wasn't for like a pay per view. It was just posted on social media, and it's like obviously fake and stuff, but it's just still like one of those things where it's just like this is fantastic.
Mm.
Also, speaking of Dirty Dom, he got booed at his own wedding.
Yes, you did send us the video.
I
I will say
laughed
we
so
I
hard.
need to give Kevin his roses in terms of like he does give us a lot of like viewing content for reference. I got to watch a lot of that Perth match.
Oh yeah,
Um and the things he described that sounded insane looked insane. But yes, also dirty little Mysterio got called out at his own wedding.
yeah. Which I mean, it was obviously his friends and family having fun with him, but the fact that it still happened is fantastic. Um,
Yes.
and then the culmination of everything happening. We'll just title this next bit "Cody Slaps Back." So, right after the elimination, or at the Elimination Chamber, Cody Rhodes just challenges The Rock. He's like, I'm free till WrestleMania. You name where, when, whatever, and we are going to fight it out. And
Ooh.
I think it was the following SmackDown. The Rock came with a proposition. The Saturday night of WrestleMania, so the night one of two, Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns and The Rock.
Ooh.
Cody and Seth win, but no bloodline is allowed to interact with Cody and Roman's match the following night. But if Rock and Roman win, it is a bloodline rules anything goes match. So not only are they both is both Cody Roman and Seth wrestling twice this weekend, but that is setting up from night one leading into night two. Also, it's going to be fan fucking tastic because I'm going to go see it.
Oh my God, you're gonna be in the same room as the Rock. Well,
Yeah,
area as the Rock. It's outdoors.
yeah, but it's insane, and they are having and with that kind of challenge, Cody and Seth are like, we accept. But then you have on Mondays Drew McIntyre, who's Seth Rollins' challenger, being like, what are you doing? You got your own title. Who cares about the bloodline? You should be focused on me. I want you at your best. So it's like it's folding into the other storylines and stuff going on,
Right. Right.
which is insanity. And since that moment, most SmackDowns, The Rock's been appearing a lot on regular TV the last couple weeks, which is kind of nice. And it is 1990s pure bad guy The Rock. They gave him a new entrance style. It's still his classic music, but it's a lot more villainous. And he's wearing the $5,000 shirts that he can afford because no one else can afford kind of vibe. And it is fantastic. It's,
Oh, I'm here for it. It is long overdue for a heel return.
yeah, it's, that's long overdue. And it's also the factor of he still sounds great on the mic. He's fully embracing his bad guy side. Like he did a whole like 16-minute Instagram or Facebook video on like just talking shit on Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins and stuff. And then he took it down after an hour and re-uploaded a 20-minute one, the director's cut of
That's
it,
really funny.
which is like awesome. And it's part like I'm not saying this is enough to get his acting career on like back on swing, but after some
Hmm.
duds movies, I think this is like a mix of like the Rock's like going back to the Rock's roots kind of situation cuz he's fully embracing his bad guy character 24/7 and he's fantastic at it. And this last Friday, uh, Cody was talking with The Rock in the ring after we get The Rock's badass new entrance, and The Rock starts talking a little bit of trash on Cody's family, and the most controversial statement was he mentioned that Cody's has siblings that are like 20 years older than him, which is true, but the Rock's oldest daughter is like 20 years older than Rock's youngest daughter, so it's just like, all right, like we clearly didn't pick a lane on this one.
Right.
And then Cody Slaps back. A month, almost exactly a month after The Rock slapped Cody, Cody slapped him back. And
Oh shit.
we are fiery. Cody's no longer like giving off the vibe of he's going to conquer the toughest guy in the room. He's giving off the vibe. He's showing anger and emotion and has like cutting all these like promos where he's talking about like what this title would mean to his family because his dad, when he wrestled in the WWE, wasn't really given the correct amount of credit he had based off of his success on smaller scenes. And it's true, he definitely deserved more credit, but he made things work. He worked behind the scenes and helped develop a bunch new champions.
Hmm.
One of them including Seth Rollins, which helps keeps things all spider web together. And Cody's brother I think he's wrestled in technically 5 different decades. He's wrestled in the
Jesus.
80s, 90s, 2000s, 10s, and 20s. And one of the best matches of his career was in I think 2020 with Cody
I was gonna
or
say, how is his
2019.
like athleticism holding up then? Because like I've
He
seen the physical toll this takes on people.
so he very rarely wrestles now. He's a lot more of a backstage role at AEW.
Hmm.
But he still go like will put on like a match or two. He's never been someone that does anything super crazy in
Hmm.
terms of match. Like he's not doing the same stuff as like Rey Mysterio or like some of the younger guys where they're just doing flips and shit.
Yeah.
So he's always had like a more conservative for his body style, and he doesn't do anything super insane, but he still stays in like good shape. So he's doing good there.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so like he had like some lower titles. He never had the big title, and Cody's getting teared up in the ring on like Monday night, talking about how it wasn't for him, and it's not for him. It's not for him. It's for his like it's for his. It's not really for his. It's for his dad, but not for his dad. It's for his mom, who watched multiple men in her family, like, and things happened to them, and like they all had a common goal of getting this type of title. It's for his like daughter, for someone to look up to and like prove to her that it's like, yeah, this isn't like a cursed family kind of thing. It's phenomenal. I might just give you that as homework to watch some of Cody's promos, because if you're looking for
Oh,
some like writing things, the dude is eloquent on the mic, and he just adds layers of depth to every character.
now and now the only thing standing in the way is Wayne the Rock Johnson, Mr. Hollywood.
Yep. So it's going to be a not so pay per view, and I'm
Right.
so
And this pay-per-view is coming up.
in about 2 weeks ish. No, just kidding. I'm looking at the wrong part of the calendar. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And it's the first night of WrestleMania is Saturday, April 6th.
Right.
And then
I guess a question I have is in terms of like this gamut of like we're gonna do this match, name your time, name your place.
mhm.
What do you want the outcome to be? What do you want the stage to? How do you want this presumed upcoming fight to dictate for WrestleMania?
I part of me honestly, this tag team match of Rock and Roman versus Seth and Cody, I wouldn't mind either way,
Right.
because I don't think they're going to make Roman or Cody take the pin for the match. But I think they're going to make Rock or Seth do it, so Cody and Roman look strong individually going into the following night.
Hmm.
And part of me wants to see Cody and Seth win for that clear cut, clean, like, it is just Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, nothing else match. But
Hmm.
also, the other part of me wants to see Roman and The Rock win, so that it's like no rules, everyone can go absolutely brutal on the match.
Right. Because like I almost feel like it has to go that way, just because it's like it has to. If this is really Cody's moment, he's got to earn it. He's got
Yeah,
to go through the gauntlet, basically taking down two of wrestling's most iconic heels.
yeah. Two huge superpowers against your heroes in the situation. So that's kind of exciting, and I'm very hyped for it. But speaking of superpowers of wrestling, this week, because there isn't any like pay-per-views or anything to go off of, we're talking about some of WrestleMania's biggest stars. And I know I left out a bunch of them. I just focused, for timeliness sake, to talk about some of the hottest people in pretty much. I try to hit every era.
Mhm.
Um, and there's definitely a lot of honorable mention names that should have been on this list that I did cut for time. All right.
Right.
So let's start off with number one, the guy that helped put WrestleMania on the map, Hulk Hogan.
Yes. I am familiar with a whole lot of his exploits thanks to the video games.
Yep. So his record, he went 8-3-1, and the one was he and Andre the Giant. They wrestled at WrestleMania 3, which was the big match, but WrestleMania 4 in a tournament, and they both got double disqualified. So that's
How?
it's there was interferences and all that stuff. No one
Hmm.
was in the right,
I see.
but it was in a tournament for the title. Um, so his first match was at WrestleMania 1 versus he was in a tag team with Mr. T, and he they fought Rowdy Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Ordendorff. And Muhammad Ali was one of two guest referees. So
That's really funny.
this is like the 80s star power movement just thrown together. It's like having Travis Kelsey face Cody Rhodes, and your guest referee is who's a very popular boxer right now, like Floyd
Um,
Mayweather, who actually has had a
yeah, I guess.
WrestleMania appearance. Fun fact.
Oh God, really?
Yeah, WrestleMania 24. Um,
Um, oh yeah, that's it. Well, no, we can talk about that piece of news after we do the history part. But
yeah, and then the his last match, Hogan's last formal match at WrestleMania was at WrestleMania 19, and he faced Vince McMahon. So think about that. That is a
of
almost
course,
20-year difference in between his first WrestleMania match and his last. But he took like a 10-year sabbatical in between.
Hmm.
Um, so for his most notable matches, I mentioned the one that put WrestleMania on the map, Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan, the slam
right?
scene around the world.
Yes,
It
I've seen this frequently.
yeah, it is. That is like obviously it happened at WrestleMania 3, but you don't really like you hear about things about WrestleMania 1. You don't really hear much about 2. And then after WrestleMania 3, that slam, everything shifted for the WWE. Well, then F, because that just put everything on the map. Andre the Giant, worldwide superstar, hasn't lost in 15 years. Fighting his former good buddy Hulk Hogan, who hasn't. It's made it seem like he hasn't offered him a championship shot.
Hmm.
And Andre, 500 plus pounds, gets slammed and beaten for the first time in like 15 years by Hulk Hogan.
Right.
It's what everybody wanted. Good versus evil. Andre was the bad guy. People are throwing things at him on his way to the ring.
Right.
Which,
Hulk Hogan's the real American.
yep, the classic I Am the Real American theme song. But also them throwing giant, like, stuff at Andre the Giant, like water bottles and stuff. It's just
Jeez.
it's throwing pebbles at a freaking rocket ship. It's not going to do much. And then the other notable match I mentioned was WrestleMania 18. Hulk Hogan versus The Rock.
I didn't realize they fought.
Yep, so this was in like the heat of Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So in the mid 90s, Hulk Hogan left the WWE to jump ship to the other big wrestling promotion, WCW at the time. And everyone thinks Hulk, there's like a couple of guys who were clearly bad guys, and everyone's like, oh, Hulk Hogan's out here to stop him. This is nuts. Then Hogan joins them.
Yes.
Hulk Hogan, clear villain for the first time in a long time of his career.
Making
And
bad
he was
movies.
Mr. Hollywood. He was like one of the first like bad guy Hollywood actor kind of bits. And then he also
Right.
gave himself like a black beard, but he still kept his silver mustache. And that was weird.
I get I Was Frozen today from one of his movies, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. Making sure we're on the same page on that.
But yeah, this was the like one of the first distinctly clear passing of the torch matches.
Mhm.
The Rock beat Hogan cleanly. Hogan like got up, gave him respect, and that was like Hulk Hogan is now out of the building. He says in quotes because even though that was far from his last match, but it was like this is your new guy, and they don't always have that kind of match, but it's fun when they do.
Mm.
Um, Hulk Hogan had 6 championship matches on his whatever 8+3+1 is amount of matches. So about 50% were championship matches, and one was for both the WWF and the Intercontinental title to unify them against the Ultimate Warrior.
Ooh. Is
Hogan,
that the one he lost?
I believe, yeah, Warrior won, I believe, yeah, but Hogan had some crazy matches against Warrior, Macho Man, who unfortunately he was one cut for time because he put on some clinics, but he's going to get the proper respect when we talk about just some matches in general, not just individuals.
Mm.
And then, oops, scroll down a little too far.
It
And
really
then,
sounds. I didn't. I guess like in my head, I felt like, in terms of like serious matches, Hulk's career was much shorter. But like even into
uh,
the '90s, he's basically being like the I am the tastemaker for like who gets to who's the next big guy.
yeah, yeah, he's the one that set the bar for the future generations to try and top it. And it's like, I guess this will prove how crazy his some of his career was. He wrestled at some capacity or appeared at some capacity at the first 9 WrestleManias. So almost a
Mm.
decade's worth of stuff. And then his next match, and one of his best matches of his WrestleMania careers, was at 18, 9 years after his previous appearance. That's kind of insane.
Mm-hmm.
And then unfortunately, like a lot of people nowadays, he was one of those people that was just like, I gotta still wrestle. And it's just like the last few matches of his career were just like, ooh, man, like somebody's gotta tell this old man to stop.
Yeah, the great. I mean, the greats never get to go out well. I
Yeah.
always forget that Ali tried to make a comeback. I don't think he'd been diagnosed with Parkinson's yet, but like they made like a documentary like Ali's coming back, but like you see some of the lost footage of the documentary, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, oh wow, no wonder you can even tell in this fight. Oh, he's going to lose, and it's going to be very bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never. I mean, and yeah, Jordan won his 6th title, another three-peat, retired for 3 years, completely missed the story arc of his career, and tried to come back for the Wizards
Yeah.
of all franchises.
Exactly. So the next one we're talking about is Bret the Hitman Hart. Another 80s classic name. His WrestleMania record 8-5, so pretty solid. Same amount of wins as Hogan, and actually an extra appearance. His first match was at WrestleMania 2. Once again, they're trying to try things. He was in a 20-man battle royale. 10 people from the WWE, 10 NFL players.
What?
Yeah, they had a bunch of
Why?
NFL players compete. It it was like it was the pre Hogan slamming Andre era, so they just kind of were like, what do we need? What is our demographic also like? And they're like, they like the NFL. And it's
Get
just
it
like,
done.
all right. So it was just one of those real like thrown together kind of things. I'm trying to see if they have a list of um, some of the football players just to see if you would. No. All right, so they had Jimbo Covert um, from the Chicago Bears, Harvey Martin from Dallas, Ernie Holmes from Pittsburgh, Bill Froelich from from Atlanta, Russ Francis from San Fran, and I'm sure you'll know this one, William the Refrigerator Perry.
Well, it wouldn't be a serious. It wouldn't be a serious match if they didn't include him.
Yeah. All right. So it might be a little bit more skewed than 10, but you catch my drift. And the winner of that
Hmm.
match was Andre the Giant. Nobody can stop the big man.
Naturally.
So Brett's last match technically was against Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 26 because they buried the hatchet. So Brett was talking about possibly jumping ship in the late 90s, and there was a lot that happened, and him and Vince basically became enemies, hardcore against each other. And it was my exact description of it was like the hatchet was covered in dirt, but it was more of like a for the fans type of match as opposed to a
Mm.
real, like, it wasn't a real match. But his last match, like his last legitimate match, was at WrestleMania 13, where it was Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in a submission match, the infamous Austin passes out match. So a submission match is you have to make the person tap.
Mm.
And with Ken Shamrock, then WWE wrestler, future MMA wrestler, now in I think TNA or working with TNA or something like that, was the referee. And these two were just beating the life out of each other. And one of the most infamous pictures of WrestleMania is over the years of Bret Hart has his signature finisher, the sharpshooter, on Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Austin's face is covered in blood. And he did not tap. He passed out.
What did they do?
Bret still won because um, they had to. They didn't have to. They stopped the match due to
Him being
him being
unconscious, I
unconscious.
assume.
So Bret still won, but it's kind of like that. Kind of provides the grounds of I never tapped. I never gave up. My body gave up, but I did not give up.
I didn't hear no bell, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And
Hmm.
then his other notable matches at WrestleMania 10, Bret lost to his brother, Owen
Ooh.
Hart. So that was actually the year that Bret won, was tied winner for the Royal Rumble because him and Lex Luger fell out at the same time. And unlike John Cena and Batista, about a decade later, this was planned.
Hmm.
Um, and to make it fair ish, they had before they both, because they could only challenge one major title. There was only one major title at the time held by Yokozuna. Um, Lex faced somebody else first, and Bret faced to like kind of even the ground. Bret faced um, Yokozuna, someone else first. So he fought his own baby brother, Owen Hart, who great wrestler, phenomenal attitude, and unfortunately died in a terrifying incident in the ring on TV.
Oh God, really?
He was supposed to zip line through down from the Raptors, or not zip line, rappel, and
Yeah.
things were not hooked up properly. And that is obviously one of the darkest days in wrestling history. But that is one of those moments where it's just like Vince McMahon immediately lost a lot of respect for people, or a lot of people respect a lot of like for him because they just kind of continued on with the show, even though everyone saw and knew what happened.
Oh wait, I've heard this story
And
before.
yeah, he was still telling people to go on, and like the Undertaker was wrestled after it, and he was like there's being in character as somebody who's angry and upset, and then there's actually being it, and you could tell the Undertaker just did not want to be in that ring. Nobody wanted to, but they
Oh,
kept their jobs. So it was insane. Caused a lot of problems for the family, the Hart family, which was a huge wrestling family, and Vince. Um, Owen's widow is so against the WWE that no matter how many times they asked about Owen being inducted into the Hall of Fame, she's refused to let them use any of his likenesses and stuff. It's
Oh
insane.
wow.
And another big Bret Hart match was at WrestleMania. I didn't write down which one, but he faced Shawn Michaels in a 60-minute Iron Man match. So an Iron Man match is you get your assigned time slot, and whoever has the most pinfalls, submissions, anything like that over the course of that time frame wins. So if you get someone to tap out, that's a point. You pin somebody, that's a point, and you go until the time runs out.
That's wild.
Bret Hart won in
Can you call a
overtime.
timeout?
Nope, no timeouts.
Hmm.
Bret Hart won in overtime, a final score of 1-0. So these two wrestled for an hour without a single other pin, a single other tap, anything. And they just put on a clinic.
That's how evenly matched they were.
Yep. Bret Hart had 3 WWE title matches, 1 tag match, and then 1 intercontinental match. And then we have Stone Cold Steve Austin, who had a 6-2. Like, people underestimate how long like Hogan's career was, the Undertaker's career was. People overestimate how long Austin and like The Rock wrestled for.
Because this was like our childhood. I remember you could go to like one of the ice cream trucks and they would have those like cookie sandwich
Yeah,
WWE bars
the ice
with
cream
like yeah,
WWE bars.
with like a black print on them for
Yep.
different wrestlers. And Steve Austin's was like the one they like promoted it with.
Yeah.
They're like Stone Cold.
Well, yeah, you want Stone Cold ice cream. So,
Well, fuck me. That makes 100% sense.
yeah. So, Austin's first match was at WrestleMania 12, where he was stunning Steve Austin right before he hit that Stone Cold era against Savio Vega, where he won. And
Mm.
Stone Cold's last match was actually only 2 years ago at WrestleMania
Really?
38. It was in Texas against Kevin Owens. And Kevin Owens proved to be one of those guys where if you want to have like a retirement match or something like that, he's one of your guys. Steve Austin was in decent enough shape, and he never really had a proper send off. So
Mm.
WrestleMania was in Texas, Austin's home state, and Kevin Owens just started talking trash about him over everything. And then they made it a match, and it looked great. Steve Austin didn't really look like he missed a beat, and Kevin Owens made Steve Austin look like he's still in his prime.
Nice.
Yeah, Austin's most notable match was that Austin doesn't pass out match at WrestleMania 13. That was like the the starting the story of Steve Austin as Stone Cold, this certified badass. He doesn't pass out. And
Right.
he had 3 WWE title matches. At WrestleMania 14, he
Mm.
wrestled against Shawn Michaels, and Mike Tyson was the guest ref. And that had one of the most infamous moments of in the middle of the ring before the match, Stone Cold Steve Austin, like not the night, but like on like Monday Night Raw, Stone Cold Steve Austin flips off Mike Tyson.
Beautiful.
And then, despite not being mentioned yet, Stone Cold has fought The Rock 3 times at WrestleMania.
I am familiar with one of these incidents, and I
Yeah.
specifically remember it for a very specific gimmick that occurred.
Yeah, so they fought 3 times, and the Stone Cold won 2 of the 3.
Really?
He actually lost the last one. And that was like a weird one because Rock went in as the bad guy, Austin went in as the good guy, and they swapped roles in the middle of the match, where Austin ended as the bad guy and Rock won as the good guy.
How often does it happen?
Semi frequently, not crazy frequently, but semi frequently. And speaking of The Rock, he's next. He wrestled. He's 6-5 at WrestleManias. Not too shabby. His first time was at WrestleMania 13. So you have Steve Austin passing out in the middle of the ring, and somewhere before that was Rocky Maivia, not The Rock, Rocky Maivia, facing the
Rocky might
Sultan.
be.
Yeah, so that was like his like original, like he was like a I'm myself kind of guy at first, where it's like, all right, like keeping his um grandfather, High Chief Peter Maivia's last name, showing the bloodline relationship.
Right. He doesn't have a persona.
Yeah, he is like just before his own limbo thing. And he fought the Sultan for the Intercontinental title.
Hmm.
And so his last time wrestled at WrestleMania is kind of interesting. So he's scheduled to wrestle at 40. So he's not done wrestling at WrestleMania yet. Technically, The Rock's last match that counted for a WrestleMania match was at WrestleMania 32, where he beat Eric Rowan of the Wyatt family in like 3 seconds for like the world's quickest WrestleMania match, because it was one of those matches that started off as just a in-ring segment, and it just, we're gonna let people pee. The Rock's got to hit some moves on somebody. So
Right. We're not paying his fees. This is like Moana.
yeah,
He's been in a couple films now.
yeah. But his last real match was against John Cena at WrestleMania 29. The the rematch of the once in a lifetime match of The Rock versus John Cena at WrestleMania 28, where that was billed as like the great one, aka The Rock versus the hottest name at the moment, John
Mm.
Cena. Like Cena's the next guy with the torch, and that kind of, he had like a little bit of a passing of the torch after that their 29 match. But The Rock won at 28, and it was just a grudge match, no titles or anything. And then for the title at 29, Cena beat The Rock.
Beautiful.
And his most notable match was, it's got to be that passing of the torch match, because that's like, he had a lot of big matches, like the ones with Austin and stuff, but that passing of the torch match shifted the WWE truly. And he had
Right.
2 Intercontinental title matches and 4 WWE title matches as of right now. Who knows what's going to happen next? And then we have Shawn Michaels, aka Mr. WrestleMania. It never felt like a WrestleMania in the 90s if Shawn Michaels wasn't included. He had some of the most elaborate entrances. He's gone into the ring on zip lines before. During some of his big matches with The Undertaker, the Undertaker had the whole gimmick of like coming up from hell. Shawn Michaels descended from heaven. Shawn Michaels, despite being Mr. WrestleMania, a 6-11 record. So he has
Well,
lost.
high variance being
Yes.
in that many.
But his first WrestleMania was at WrestleMania 5. And that was when he was part of the tag team The Rockers. So before he was like Shawn Michaels, Heartbreak Kid. And they're kind of just, they were in the fodder talent territory.
Mm.
And they lost to Akeem and Big Boss Man. And then Shawn Michaels' last WrestleMania match was, without not including his like guest appearances he's made over the years, but his like last legitimate one was against the Undertaker at WrestleMania 26 in a streak versus career match. So they wrestled at 25, and it was pretty much exclusively Shawn Michaels going, I could beat the streak. And then another one of the really long-term storytelling, they built it up for a year. In December, Shawn Michaels is talking about challenging The Undertaker, and The Undertaker just goes, no. Shawn Michaels tries to win the Royal Rumble to a point where he throws Triple H out. Doesn't get it. He tries to. The Undertaker, the champion at the time, is in the Elimination Chamber match. Shawn Michaels breaks in. He doesn't sneak in like AJ Styles did to jump LA Knight. He pushed up on one of the floor panels and helped get the Undertaker defeated to provoke him into the match. And that was one of the most phenomenal matches because it was the Undertaker streak still going strong, and then Shawn Michaels' career. Shawn's
Hmm.
most notable matches, I put two. There was the one he lost at WrestleMania 10 against Razor Ramon in a ladder match. That was the first WWE ladder match where they hung a belt above the ring and you had to climb a ladder to get it.
Right, right.
And then hit the WrestleMania 24 when Floyd Mayweather is in a boxing match, which is a big show. Shawn Michaels wrestled Ric Flair in a career match. And it has another one of the most infamous moments of Ric Flair, clearly should have stayed down, clearly needs to be stopped. And he gets up again, and Shawn's looking at him, and he goes, "Don't do it, don't do it." And before Shawn hits his signature Sweet Chin music, you can read his lips. He says, "I'm sorry, I love you," and then kicks and wins and
Hmm.
cries with Ric Flair. And despite all that, Ric Flair allegedly had his last match again within the last calendar year.
That's how it always goes.
12 years later. Part of the
I mean, they're bringing the Halloween franchise back for God's
yeah,
sakes.
part of the you got to be stopped. So his WrestleMania 10 match was both for the Intercontinental and WWE title, but he
Hmm.
still had 4 WWE title matches, 1 World title, and 1 Intercontinental title match as well. Uh, Next on our list is Randy Orton. Now we're in the more modern era. We're out with the late 90s guys. We're in current, not kind of current day, but early 2000s. A lot more of our childhood. Randy Orton is currently 8-9. His first WrestleMania match was when he was part of the group Evolution at WrestleMania 20. It was him, Triple H, and I believe Ric Flair. It might have, yeah, I think it was Ric Flair, not Batista.
Hmm.
And they faced The Rock and Sock, aka Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Mick Foley. Pretty classic match. Odds are Randy Orton's going to be facing Logan Paul at WrestleMania 40, but his last one before that was he missed 39, but he was at 38, and he was tagging with Matt Riddle as the tag team RK Bro. Riddle was pretty much a classic stoner character, and they fought Alpha Academy of Chad Gable and Otis and the Street Profits for the Raw titles, and it was a sleeper match. It was okay tag team match, not super high on the card. Maybe we'll go to the bathroom, maybe we'll go to the snack bar, and then it's just oh man, I really wish I didn't go to that.
Right.
Um, Randy's most notable match is probably at WrestleMania 30. It was Randy Orton versus Batista versus Daniel Bryan for the title, where Daniel Bryan wrestled Triple H earlier in the night to qualify for that match. And Daniel Bryan was he had the classic underdog momentum. He was the smallest guy in the room. He was a vegan, not related to the storyline, but that's something about him. And
Right.
he was a little bit he was clearly the underdog, but he had the crowd behind him. He was one of the most recent superstars in the late Vince McMahon era that no matter what they tried to do with him, the crowd loved him. And because he had the stuff. He had the moxie. You point up in the stars and you go, nah, that's Daniel Bryan. But Randy Orton's title match count, he had 3 WWE titles, a U.S. title match, a world title match, and he competed in the Money in the Bank ladder match, which we'll be talking about the Money in the Bank more later on in the series.
Mm.
Um, and he has been, I think, out of all the people on the list, his quality versus like quantity is all over the place. Some matches he looked phenomenal. Other matches he looked like trash. It's crazy.
Right.
Um, so then we have Mr. Invisible, John Cena. So he has a 10-6 record, which is pretty impressive. And when he's not running naked on stage and at the Oscars,
Wild for that.
yeah, his first WrestleMania match was at WrestleMania 20, where he wrestled the Big Show for the U.S. title,
Mm.
and and then his most recent match at WrestleMania was at WrestleMania 39, so last year, where he lost to Austin Theory, also for the U.S. title.
Ooh.
Um, Helped give the new kid on the block a big boost, but when he went out to the ring and also went and talked Cass, Cena kept him humble. One of the best smack talkers of wrestling is John Cena. His most notable match was against when he beat The Rock at the rematch of the Once in a Lifetime. And he has had 2 U.S. title matches, ironically, both his first and most recent. A world title match, and then 7 WWE title matches. It took 9 WrestleManias for John Cena to wrestle his first one without a title match. And that was against The Rock in a once in a lifetime match, which had its own special, different level of branding. And then he also had this at WrestleMania 36. He had a Firefly Funhouse cinematic match, which was wonderful. It was the most meme-worthy thing ever, and apparently Cena was like, because he was like starting to be actor Cena a little bit more, and Cena was offering like having a decent sized role with the behind the scenes of it, which was kind of funny.
Mm.
All right, now
I was gonna say, do they lean into him being kind of a meme a lot?
um they don't intentionally. He's one of the few people that over the years, especially under Vince was very strict with, you say my words as I write them and do my actions as I write them. And
Mm.
but like he was like that a little bit in the 90s where it was just, but like people had the ability to freestyle more, and then the PG era, so like the late like 2003 through pretty much the end of Vince's control, very few superstars had the ability to go out there and say whatever and do whatever without facing consequences, and Cena was one of them because he had years of trust with Vince that he was going to bash a brand accidentally. He was going to say anything he shouldn't have. And he kind of let him go wild a little bit. Cena was also one of the few people that was able to call his own matches. And so, like, you're in the ring with him, and Cena's, like, you can hear it pick up on the mics every once in a while of Cena going, all right, toss me into the corners. All right, go for the finish. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the next is the big dog, Roman Reigns.
Uh,
Currently 7-2. His first match was at WrestleMania 29 with the Shield against Randy Orton, Sheamus, and the Big Show, and that was kind of like the Shield was like the big bad guy faction interrupting big matches to push their agenda, and yeah, so like it was it was there, but it wasn't like super important. Uh, he's going to be at 40, guaranteed. in 2 matches, so one for both nights, and then the last match he's wrestled as of right now was obviously last year, where he beat Cody for the unified WWE and Universal titles, aka the Uwu title. They had to know what they were doing, and it was part of continuing Cody's story that he must finish, and only in the American school system can have somebody take this long to finish a story, which was hilarious.
Right.
So he, so he's had 9 matches so far. 6 of them were title matches. He's had 2 WWE, 2 Universal, and 2 Uwu titles. His most notable match was against The Undertaker, actually. He beat The Undertaker for The Undertaker's second loss at WrestleMania. The streak was already dead, and it was kind of like a passing of the torch, but the torch got a lot of hatred on the way. And
Mm.
the he's actually 1-1-1 with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, who's typically like the guy, the big bad dude.
Mm.
So Roman Reigns won at WrestleMania 38. He lost at WrestleMania 34. And neither of them won their title match at WrestleMania 31 because Seth Rollins cashed in the Money in the Bank in one of the most electrifying crowd moments on the planet. Like, he had the Money in the Bank title, so he could have a title match whenever, wherever, etc. And he cashed in the middle of that at WrestleMania. The crowd goes ballistic. And actually, a little funny part is during the WWE had comics for a hot minute,
Oh
and
God.
that was one of the things mentioned in the comics. And it was like, oh, Seth did this under Shawn Michaels telling him to piss off Triple H, and it was like a whole like mini storyline in it, but it was fantastic. And then the big dog, the bigger than big dog, the phenom, the real Mr. WrestleMania, The Undertaker. There's no way I would be able to talk about WrestleMania without talking about my favorite wrestler, who, not a front runner, he just won the first match I watched, and that's how I decided who to be a diehard fan of, is who wins the first match, and it just happened to be him.
Huh.
It was him versus Mark Henry, which was like on like a random SmackDown, and I was just like, Undertaker's my guy. Do you want to take a guess at the Undertaker's WrestleMania record?
Ooh, I feel like this could be a pretty traumatic range. I'm gonna say 9-6.
You are so close. He's 25-2.
Wow.
His first,
Wow, he's been in a lot of these.
first WrestleMania 7 against Superfly Jimmy Snuka. And the last WrestleMania he was in was WrestleMania 36, where he faced AJ Styles in that Boneyard match that we watched. And he is like one of the most insane talents. The WrestleMania streak was one of the hottest things, and it was first acknowledged after WrestleMania 18, where he beat Ric Flair. And then WrestleMania 30, it was actually, WrestleMania 21, when the Undertaker was where he became 13-0, was technically the first challenge against the WrestleMania streak. Before that, it just kind of happened. Opponents would line up, but after WrestleMania 21, it was you're challenging the streak unless if the Undertaker's challenging for a title match. And his first challenger for the streak, a very young Randy Orton, the legend killer himself.
Hmm.
And ironically enough, Undertaker wanted to lose at that match. He wanted to help give Orton like who just recently was done with Evolution, or he wanted to just pass the torch to Orton, make the kid look phenomenal, but they said no for a solid 20. The full title, the full length of the streak, 21-0, and so like he still decided, not him, behind the scenes they decided, you know what, maybe you're not done yet for another 7 WrestleManias, 6, 8
Jesus
WrestleManias.
Christ.
And it got to a point where if people had like some of the big names, if they didn't have title matches, they just went after the Undertaker just to make something happen, try and challenge the streak. And because of how high of a bar the Undertaker set in talent, he has only had 3 title matches at WrestleMania out of 25, which, like, he proved he didn't need them. He wrestled in casket matches where you have to put your opponent in a casket. He wrestled Kane a couple of times, Shawn Michaels, Triple H. He made like, it was grudge matches, it was cell matches, it was steel cage matches. He put his body on the line. And probably one of his most infamous matches was WrestleMania 30, where Brock Lesnar broke the streak. He was the guy too.
Of course, it was Brock.
Yeah, the big bad dude who kind of friends with the Undertaker in real life, and just this was also starting to get past the Undertaker's prime. Like, he had a couple matches with Shawn Michaels at 20 that looked phenomenal. And then he had a pair of matches with Triple H where the first one, which I believe was 27, the Undertaker needed assistance getting out of the ring and stuff. He looked like shit.
How tall is he again?
6'10". Or he's billed at 6'10". I think he's more like 6'9", 6'7" now. Because he did leg drops for a living. Dude's going to shrink himself a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, the streak breaking match was one of the ones. And then WrestleMania, the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, that's what they called it. It was Shawn Michaels versus trying to take on the streak the first time against the Undertaker. And what an absolute clinic of a match. It is my favorite match of all time, and it was just a work of art. Like, to a capacity, they started off slow. They start getting bigger and bigger. And then 6'10" Undertaker is diving out of the ring head first. Shawn Michaels is jumping off of things and like getting to a point where neither of them are like willing to give up, and it was phenomenal. And that's because they were both two of the best. Where it's like they didn't need a title. It was such a good match to the point of they were the second to last match of that night. The final match was Randy Orton versus Triple H for a title. Those guys are standing backstage watching this match. Neither of them wanted to go on after that. Two of the biggest names at the time, and still currently, Triple H and Randy Orton, were just like, they kind of both gave each other like I don't know, man. Do you want to go on after that? That's how good of a match it was. That's like telling somebody, it's like, all right, Hogan and Andre just finished up. Get out there, kids. It's just like, what? Why us?
Right.
So
honestly, like I'm shocked they ever put the Undertaker like not last.
Oh yeah, he was very rarely the main event. Because he was never like they wanted to make the title matches the main event and stuff, and he had very few. But towards the end of his career, with like after, so he had title matches at WrestleMania 23 and 24, and then he wrestled Shawn at 25, and then he wrestled Shawn again at 26, and for the streak versus career, and then They didn't make the same mistake twice. They were just like, all right, these two, they're gonna put on a fucking clinic again. It's like we're gonna put them on last. We're not putting anything after them again. Uh,
Good instinct.
yeah, they chose correctly, and he just didn't. He just put on a clinic. But like those Shawn Michaels matches, that's when you grab every developmental talent sitting behind the scenes and just go, come on, you're watching this whether you like it or not. Which, if you're behind the scenes of WrestleMania, you're watching that match willingly anyway. But it's just like there was storytelling, there was match build. It looked gorgeous.
Mm.
So that is some of the
I,
highlights of WrestleMania's biggest stars. Obviously, I didn't mention them all. I didn't give proper shout outs to people like Edge or Rey Mysterio, Macho Man, Warrior. But that's once again for time. Seth Rollins pulling off some of the biggest moments.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's wild. Like, because I knew a couple of these names, but even then, it can be a kind of overwhelming trying to like, knowing how many people have been a part of this
Oh
industry.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of there is a lot, and it's like this is a really good one for baseline knowledge. Just like how next episode is going to be about some of the biggest matches, and we're going to go into more details about some of the matches that I mentioned tonight.
Mhm.
But it's we gotta we gotta just here's enough for a baseline knowledge to like a point where I'm playing wrestling video games and they're talking about WrestleManias, and my wife's like spitting out facts about it because of how much I talked about it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Um, I guess my big question is from this lesson is, I guess talking about the Undertaker,
Mm-hmm.
I would be curious to hear you kind of describe their style, how they
Uh,
approach wrestling. Like, what are their techniques? What is their? I mean, I guess their persona is
yeah.
kind of self-evident in the name Undertaker, but
Yeah.
like, you know, how
So,
is their performances? What
so
defines an Undertaker classic?
an Undertaker classic, because he's been such a big name for the vast majority of his career. He very rarely spent time on the shelf for like his
Mm,
prime, and he very rarely spent it like out of the limelight. Like maybe the
mhm.
first year was kind of like just building him, and then after once he had his first title match, he was never considered not a main eventer. His style, I would say, is considered methodical.
Hmm.
He's one of those people that doesn't seem to waste a step. He's very punch based, but he can pick people up and throw them. He hits a tombstone pile driver, so he literally flips somebody upside down and spikes their head into the mat. Um, as his one of his finishers, he one of his signature moves is he goes old school, so he twists some guy's arm up and then he walks to the corner and then he walks across the top rope and jumps off of it and hits their arm. And he's been in so many he's the guy that threw Mankind off the top of the Hell in the Cell 20 feet in the air through a table, and then later in that match chokeslammed him through the cell. Him and Shawn Michaels wrestled in the first Hell in the Cell match in the 90s, and then I think it took like 10 years for one of them to not be in every single Hell in the Cell match.
Right,
So
right.
he's always been one of the guys, and he's also pretty much always had the role of he doesn't always need the title to be
Mm,
like considered a top name. And backstage, he was like one of the biggest leaders of the locker room. If you screwed up, the Undertaker made sure you knew it, and like what was it? Like early on in the Miz's career, the Miz said something or did something that was like not cool by locker room standards, and the
mm.
Undertaker's like, "You're changing the hallways now," and tossed his bag out of the locker room into the hallway. and the Miz had to change
Damn.
out in the hallway until the Undertaker let him back in. He was the behind the scenes judge, jury, and executioner, and like uh, ironically enough, Kurt Angle and Vince McMahon would always roughhouse like with each other. They'd like get each other in headlocks, and the Undertaker on a flight once woke up because he thought they were legitimately fighting, and literally just threw Kurt Angle aside. It's just like, ooh,
Jesus.
yeah. So he's always like, he's like the most neutral backstage like force of staying in character, and he was in like character for 30 years without with very rarely slipping.
Mhm.
There's like a couple moments here and there that got publicized that it's just like, all right, yeah, this makes sense. Like one of his weddings was publicized, and it's just like, all right, makes sense.
Mhm.
It happened, but yeah, crazy talent. Um, I'm excited to see where some of the newer talent also goes. I think if I were to do this like type of style of episode again in like 5 years or something, I think Gunther's name would be in consideration to be mentioned.
Mhm.
Dude's put on some phenomenal matches, and he only put on like one major match already, only yet in his career. I can see him getting for far. I can see Cody going far. I can see my
Mhm.
dog groaning because he's dramatic baby.
Mhm. He's just a little guy.
Yeah, he's not super little. He's like 30
Well,
pounds,
that's true.
40 pounds.
Yes, but age-wise, he's just a little guy.
Yeah, he's like 3 to 7. Anyway, that's beside the point. So, I guess, do you have any other questions before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, honestly, I think you did a wonderful job covering it.
Thank you. All right, so if that's the case, send us home, Carter.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for listening yet again. I am having a great time with this series. I hope you're all getting a lot out of it too. And as the frosts of winter begin to melt and the flames begin to rise, we will all meet in the city of brotherly love, where there is very little brotherhood and very little love, but there is a story to be finished. Ah, shoot, I should have saved that one for
That
right
was
before WrestleMania.
that was good. That was phenomenal. Um,
Damn it, I should have saved it.
anyway, before that,
I'll have to think of a more epic one.
check out the Disney Desk. They're going to be doing a March Madness bracket of Disney movies.
Oh, yes, I do want to shout out Kevin. So, for our Patreon, we decided it would be really fun to do a bracket with all 62 original Disney animated films, the ones that are classified as Walt Disney Animation Studios, plus the Goofy movie and Bob's Burgers, the movie, because technically that one, even though it was animated by Fox, was released under the Disney banner because it was after the Fox acquisition. Kevin did a lovely job of sitting down and figuring out the seating for all 64 films. We appreciate it greatly, and I'm really excited for it. We will also be talking all basketball this month. Our first episode of the month was Air Bud. We are about to record an episode on a kind of underrated gem. Yes, it's the Disney basketball movie,
I
and also we
know. I
already did
couldn't figure
High
it
School
out, and now
Musical.
I get it. Oh man, that's
Right.
hilarious.
It's
That's
like we literally
fantastic.
like we were literally like, what's the most iconic Disney basketball movie ever made? And it's like, well, we already did High School Musicals 1, 2, and 3. So what is the second most famous thing they've ever done with basketball? And that was the obvious one. This week, we are recording it tomorrow. We are doing Chang Can Dunk, which is an absolutely delightful movie that was a Disney Plus original. I think I texted Sydney during that. I am actually fucking furious that they did not put that in theaters. That would have been a guaranteed clean, like 90 to 100 million, make over its budget. Good time for everyone. It is too good to be dying on a streaming service. And our final episode or our third episode will be Space Jam. So if that
Hell
excites
yeah.
you, check out the Disney Desk podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And we hope to see you there as we celebrate March Madness.